Hi, everyone. My name's Shane Murray. I'm the field CTO at Monte Carlo, the data and AI observability company. And I'm really happy to be here today talking to Andrew Machen. Uh, I'm American Airlines barely needs an introduction, one of the largest and most historic airlines in the world. But I'll hand it over to Andrew to maybe introduce himself and how he got to his role at American.
Yeah, thanks so much, Shane. So Andrew Machen, I've been with American Airlines for about 13 and a half years, and I am the leader of the data privacy, governance, and reference data organization at American Airlines. And so really happy to sit and talk with you for a little bit about kind of how we got to where we are with quality and observability.
And so maybe starting at, I guess, the 30,000 foot viewers we should for airlines. How is data used in American Airlines? Where does it become most prominent?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting place to be whenever you're talking about data, right? Just to go ahead, we just wanted to stop on this slide for just a second. One of the great things about working for American is the culture, right? I think we're all about caring, and that's something that we really value. And so we care for people on life's journey is something that we say inside. And though that's not only our customers, but our people. And so, and we've got a lot of work to do. And so to answer your question, in terms of what we need the data for, why it's important, well, you have to think about what's going to make an airline tick, what you're going to have to do to get things operating on time. And so when you look at, a day in the life of any airport, right, any station that we have, it's almost like lining up a set of dominoes, right? And so if we've got the first number of flights that we have that run from maybe 5 o'clock in the morning until about 10 o'clock in the morning, we call that the right start window. And if those flights take off as scheduled, then we're probably going to have a good day so long as there's not weather. But if we don't, we're almost guaranteed to not have a great day. And so when you think about that, the data is constantly flowing, and it constantly has to be where it needs to be on time, right? A lot of times it needs to be around 4 a.m. local time, and and our platforms have to be ready to go. We'd have to have notifications that everything is has landed the way it needs to be landed. And then, some of the analysis that we have to do, it ages, right? Certainly in areas like revenue management, right? Where if we don't get data in by like 9 o'clock in the morning local time, our ability to optimize revenue for the day has been impaired. And so making sure that we not only have data, but that we can trust our data is very, very important in the airline industry, which runs, fairly low margin, as you could imagine. Right. And so we have to have these things.
Yeah, it feels like often businesses kind of work at the speed of their sort of underlying product. And so you're kind of working at the speed of aircraft here, just in terms of your data platform.
Right. And the truth is, in the industry, you're talking about the turnaround time of an aircraft, right? When something, an aircraft comes in, we have a limited number of minutes to get everyone off the aircraft, clean the aircraft, load with catering, get the crew on board, get the passengers on board, make sure everything is there, and then pull away. And so as you can imagine, even 1 minute of savings there, is millions of dollars in the airline industry.
And so, Andrew, you told me you've kind of had a few different roles at American over the years, mm-hmm. kind of played both data producer and mm-hmm. now within the data group. Maybe tell me about the sort of big turning points on the journey at American for data.
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things that you need to know about me is that I've been working with the governance group for years now, but I've only actually just taken the group over recently. I've been operating in different areas of data for my entire career, but most recently I've been running data engineering teams for about 6 years. And then before that, I spent about 7 years in the operations running the vital data that runs runs the airline. So when you look at that, right, I mean, the company has been storing and analyzing data for, over 50 years. Now, when you talk about the big mainframe systems, right? Trying to get all that together and trying to perform analysis. And back then analysis took months, right? And then you move into the 90s when we started big data, right? Everybody was doing Hadoop and things like that, trying to make that work and trying to get some kind of prediction. That was interesting, but it was not exactly what we needed, to be really honest with you. And then from there, when we started in 2019, moved over everything that we had in the cloud, right? Starting in 2019, we finished up right during COVID. That was the big turning point for us, right? Was to get everything into the systems that we had. And, we kind of did IT first, kind of bottom up approach, getting all the data in. And so, we've kind of faced the challenges from that. And, and once we got done with that, then it was, okay, is our data lake a data swamp? That was a lot of what we heard about. You probably had similar conversations at your company. What do we need to do there to understand our data? And then, as you got generative AI that starts to hit and people start to ask questions like, why aren't we further along with this? Is our data ready for generative AI? And so, where we are now is being really, at a point where we need to understand, right? Not just have a feeling about if our data is quality, but to be able to prove it. And so that's a big part of where we are now.
Yeah, and so I guess in that sort of complex environment and working with many business domains, who are kind of a little fragmented, and you're running governance there. Mm-hmm. What does governance look like, and how do you not be a bottleneck? Like, how do you create a modern governance strategy in American?
Yeah, well, we had to do it with a lot of help and a lot of great partnerships for sure, right? But the first thing that we had to do was figure out, what kind of value we needed to deliver here, right? Get a base of what governance was going to do. And so, figuring out that we need great stewardship, right? That we need people to understand their data. But then, something that was really a big pivot point for us was data quality, right? Data observability, to be able to see that. That's probably the easiest way for us to get people to buy in on this. The different data stewards that we have, certainly takes convincing, that what we're doing is important in some cases. Not in every case, right? But we have great partners, but those are the things where we need to talk about, right? And then it leads into, okay, well, why are we doing this? What's the value? And so that's when we start to talk about data as a product, right? And then there's the things that we have to do, right? We have to make sure, we deal with a lot of customer data, and so we need to make sure that we're that we're treating customers' data with respect. Those are kind of the things that we do in the background. And so that formed the basis for our strategy, and kind of rolled into the point where we start to take a look at, how are we going to prove quality? Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe with that question, like, mm-hmm. is specific to quality, like what's the maybe prior state and the state you're kind of moving to with data quality?
Oh, the battery's running low on the laptop.
Oh.
We might need to move fast. So yeah, before this, right? It was a couple of things, right? It was something bad having to happen in the company, and business groups having to figure out analysis, weeks or even months after something had happened. If you've got anomalies or smaller anomalies that happen, you're also relying on a lot of siloed code, right? That different ingestion groups for data engineering are working on. That's one of the reasons why we really wanted to lean on a tool like Monte Carlo, right? Was because it's eliminating, probably over 1 million lines of code for us. Right. I mean, it's a guess here, but it's probably not too inaccurate. That we can get our code base a little bit lighter, and we can rely on something that's proven. And so that was very important for us in terms of kind of what we're looking for, right? To be able to get to that point. there's pieces of this, like I said, timeliness and completeness that we can get out of the box with a tool like Monte Carlo. The rest of it we needed to, we needed to work on, right? We needed to configure. And so that's another big piece of what we did. We leaned in really hard to trying to figure out how to configure things, how to create the policies and in the community that was going to make us successful. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where we are right now, right? And we're at the point, we reached the tipping point. Maybe I'm jumping to some of the wins here a little bit, but we've reached the point where we're really starting to see some interesting savings that are coming out of the work that we did, right? I mean, it's coming about 9 months in for us, but still that's very quick.
Yeah, I guess outside of the tool, like what are the practices that have made this possible? Like, how do you think about either monitoring strategy or incident response, or how you measure your progress in this path to building trust?
So I think what we're trying to do is, the first thing that we have to do is we have to show a financial return. If I'm really honest here, right? We need to show that the tool's paying for itself. Certainly in low margin business, with the world climate as it is right now, it's very important for an airline to be able to show that. The other piece of it is to be able to prove these things out and measure them and show people kind of where we're going as a part of certifying data as products, right? So we want to lead our different groups into, working with us to configure tools like Monte Carlo for their data, so that we can work toward that certification. And so that's really what we're looking to do right now is to take the data steward community that we have that's running through this, making sure that they're compliant with everything that we have and that it's hooked up. Because the truth is, when we get the kind of things, right, when we get the kind of checks that you see on the screen here, like freshness and volume and things like that, we're seeing immediate feedback from it, right? And so that's a good indicator for us. And so finance really wants us to talk about the cost savings, but we're, as we'll talk, it's really important for us to be able to certify data as products, so that we can really be trusting of the data that we're putting out.
Yeah, maybe just on that, can you say what that kind of partnership is with the stewards? Might be in, customer loyalty or various other domains. How do you kind of work with them and kind of bring them along for the ride?
Right. So we've been a little lucky there, but it's one of the things that we've had to work hard on. Right. I think it was important for us to create partnerships not only with our vendors but other governance consultant groups to make sure that we have what we need, that we're engaging in the right way. That's a lot of work, right? It is a weekly and a lot of times a daily process for us to create that, that foundation so that we can give the data stewards what they need, right? So the people that are leaned in with us right now, they're data stewards, but really we see them almost as chief data stewards, right? Yeah. We're kind of building them into that. And what it's going to lead to for us is, kind of a semi-federated model where, our product owners in the data governance organization are going to, they're going to have a line of communication back and forth. It's going to be constant work there, but we're always going to give those groups what they need. And so that's, very important for us to have the data stewards. We've got good lean in in the areas where basically the airline makes its money, right? In our commercial organization with loyalty, dealing with customers, also in operations. Oh, I think our laptop died, but
you can keep going without.
No worries. So, but it's something that's a work in progress for us, but it's been a great journey so far, right? Yeah. We've got great bottom up support. I think the challenges that we have kind of come from the high level win for data governance, right? And so we'll talk about that in a little bit too.
Yeah. And And maybe stepping back on, you've been partnering with Databricks on this journey as well as Monte Carlo.
Right.
Like, what would you say are the kind of key accomplishments on that transformation, and where have you got room to move in, say, the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, that's a good topic here. The truth is we knew that before we were going to have any kind of success, in the quality or the catalog or marketplace areas, we knew we had to get to Unity Catalog. Right. There's actually a talk going on by my peers in the platform team at the exact same time of this talk where they talk about all the work we did for Unity Catalog. But it was crucial, right? We needed the lineage, to be able to track everything back, and we couldn't have gotten it unless we did that work. That was an effort that took us about a year, but it was well worth it, right? We finished up about the beginning of April of this year, and we had a lot of work to do, but it's already paying off. It was definitely well worth the time that we spent, right? And from there, we can start to draw these lines of what we have, so that we can both create the governance that like our finance organization wants and our privacy organization needs, but we're going toward the data as a product vision that we have, right? We couldn't have gotten there unless we did all of that work. So,
maybe just before you brought up the kind of ROI as such a critical thing for data leaders like yourself, needing to prove the ROI of every investment. How would you talk about the wins along this journey in that kind of sense, the big wins that you've accomplished?
Right. So that's really the exciting part about all of this, is that, we did all of this work, right? And it's been going on for a while. It really kicked into gear about 10 months ago. And I would say the two biggest wins that we've had, started about 60, 90 days ago, and they're continuing to roll in. And so I've got two examples from the work that we've done here. One is a case where, obviously we have Advantage, which is, the biggest loyalty program in the airlines. So it's very, very important to us. A piece of that would be marketing consents, right? Whenever somebody joins Advantage, they tell us whether we can market to them or not. And so we had a case that came up where there was a change put into an upstream system, and the change failed. And it resulted in a small number of, marketing consents that were temporarily lost. Now, it's a small number. It's 5 figures of people that join. Obviously, we get tens of thousands of entries a day, but we have a value on that. And Monte Carlo helped us to detect all of this in less than 24 hours, and we resolved it in about 3 days. And so our analysts go back and look at, what the value of these marketing consents are, and they're not small. I mean, the amount of money is not small. And the truth is, in those 3 days, we paid for the entire program. I mean, like I said, my comms department is not going to let me share the numbers, but needless to say, it was a lot of money. And so the funding we got, it totally covered everything in those 3 days. So it was in the millions of dollars. So I've got a second case here. The second case is once we were able to look at the lineage of what we had and we put everything together, then we were actually starting to figure out how we could start to delete data from our data lake to try to save money there. And so that was something, that we had wanted to do for quite some time. As you know, Databricks is a great product, but you have to control your cost, right? And so with the information that we had and the work that we were able to do there, we were able to purge enough raw data from our data lake environment that we were able to save about the same amount of money, and it'll be continuous, right? We've got continuous purge process in place as well. And that's as a result of the work that we did here.
I feel like deleting big data could be the name of your next talk.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's really important to, oh, we got it back. So move forward just a little bit. And so, yeah, so kind of go back before, you know, I said it's over 40,000 records. One of the things I wanted to say there is that represents less than 0.07% of data, right? That we have, you know, of active Advantage customers. And so what you can do is you can think about what it would have taken for us to have detected something that small without a tool like Monte Carlo. Our analysts say that it might have taken months. And so, you know, and by that point, you're starting to run into data privacy concerns, right? If you go to try to get those consents back, you run into data protection, GDPR, you know, concerns, and you know, at months you probably can't get them back. And so this is the cloud cost reduction that we had here. You know, 25% reduction in data. You know, almost all of that in the raw zone, right? If you've got that like that bronze zone, if you use medallion architecture, we were able to purge a lot of that. You know, the truth is we didn't know if we needed it before this, and now, you know, now we're in a position where we can actively clean those environments because we know that we've got a better version of it, you know, and that it's been processed.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you've set this up. You know, I often see this as like a one-off, you know, cleanup, but to set this up as an ongoing vacuuming and optimization is really compelling.
Right. And so, you know, it had gotten to the point for us, and I know that we've talked to other, you know, other companies, you know, where they kind of went the same route that we did, and then FinOps becomes very, very important, right? And so it was a big win for us to be able to prove our sustainability to the company.
Mm-hmm. So maybe now looking forward, strategy and tactics to come, and what's next on the journey for your team and the broader team at American Airlines?
Yeah, so, you know, the truth is it's a pretty exciting time for us, right? We're you know, we're at a point now where the company, pretty much every company in the world is looking to know that they're ready for, you know, the next big AI revolution in their industry, and they want to be the ones doing it. And so we have a very high priority on data and making sure that things are working correctly. In the data organization, you know, we've been hiring, you know, seems like we've been hiring forever. We're still hiring, right? And, you know, for me and my managers, you know, it seems like that's all we do is hire people right now. And so we're gonna continue to be hiring for the next few months, trying to make sure that we have what we need to get to that next level. You know, and then after that, we need to make sure that we're training. We're hiring, you know, all over the world right now. You know, we've got facility in India, and then we've got onshore in Dallas, Phoenix, and in Tulsa. And so working to make sure that everybody understands the data that we have. You know, it's a lot of work. So that's probably our first tactical priority. And then the second piece is making sure that our strategy is correct, right? We've done so much with setting up governance. We've had so many conversations with, you know, about governance, and people are asking us, you know, how's this going to work for me? Obviously, if you talk about governance to a finance organization, or you talk about governance to, you know, privacy lawyers, they're going to listen to you all day. One of the things that we figured out is that it's almost a losing proposition for business analyst executives to talk about governance. And so we're shifting our strategy there. We're talking about data as a product, right? And it's not that we're not going to talk about governance, but it's a part of that process. That's the real win. So we're switching over to that. We are, you know, we're probably not going to have a CDO in our organization. So we're working for local CDOs, for chief data stewards. We're building that in the business. And, we're looking to scale and proliferate that and make it run forever. And we're trying to figure out how we can do this quickly, right? We've talked a lot about minimum viable governance, and it's kind of a controversial subject, but we're still going to continue to work on it because we want to have the least amount of setup on this as possible. And so we're working to figure out exactly where that is. And then the last piece of this is going to be, that we're going a lot more social than an IT organization, typically goes with governance, right? We're starting to take a look at the people that we have, because the thing is that, the business has to take accountability for their data, and we're here to help them, right? And so making sure that we're gamifying as much as we can, we're having fun events where we can get people engaged, we're creating guilds, those are already running right now, and then, from all of these events, we get a lot of need to make it even easier. And so we're building up an organization to specifically do pipeline work just for governance. And so that's kind of where we're headed right now. We're really excited about where things are going. Certainly a great place to be.
It sounds good. I like the title of local CDO. I think it sounds more attainable for someone like me. I might go to the audience to see if there's any questions for Andrew.